Well, good evening. It's that time again. Well, of course, it may not be evening when you're watching it, but it is with us. Anyway, Ruth, what are we up to this evening?
Hi, well, we've got Hannah Lloyd with us. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, thanks.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your early life, obviously in Wales? So we'd like to hear.
Yeah, so I grew up in Cardiff, and a lot of my family is still there. So it was my parents and my brother and sister. And one of my main memories is just that there was always family and friends around. My mum was one of 7, and a lot of her family still live in Cardiff. And yeah, they were always in and out of the house, and there was always friends from the church in and out. Yeah, it was a really nice community feeling. And particularly Sunday lunches, I remember my mum would always cook a roast dinner, and we'd always have lots of students coming round because of Cardiff University. Yeah, and it was just a really nice family day. So lots of people and community, and yeah, really loving kind of home. So
Do you speak Welsh?
No, I did it at school, but I don't remember much now because it's a long time ago. Yeah.
You don't have a very strong Welsh accent. Do you have one sort of hidden that you can put on when you want to?
I think not really. I think it's sort of declined over the years, sadly.
It sounds, Hannah, like it was a really busy household then, if she had lots of brothers and sisters.
Yeah. And I had lots of cousins. So yeah, my nana had I think 18 grandchildren or something, and she was constantly knitting jumpers for us all. And yeah, it was lovely. Yeah.
Oh, and you mentioned church. So how did you come to your faith?
So I became a Christian when I was 7. I used to go to Girl Crusaders Union, and there was one meeting which I went to, and a specific talk. It was actually the person speaking held up the name of the longest place in Wales, which is in Anglesey, which is and she held it up, and we talked about how some words were very difficult to say, and then she turned over the piece of paper and it had the word sorry on it, and she said about how that's also really a difficult word to say. And she went on to explain about the cross and what Jesus had done and his sacrifice. And I think for the first time, I really understood why Jesus had died and that he'd done it for me. And although I knew lots of stories about Jesus, that was the first time I sort of realized I needed to respond. So I remember going home and going up to my bedroom and praying and saying sorry. And just, yeah, had a real sense of peace, and just this image of Jesus leading me through my life, and yeah, really awareness of all that he'd done for me, and thankfulness that yeah, he died for me. So yeah, it was a really memorable occasion. And I think, like, when I was a teenager and a bit older, obviously I sometimes had questions and things I needed to work through, because I guess I was quite young. But anyway, I worked through one thing at a time. So yeah.
That's a great. And how did you meet Geraint?
So I came to Oxford University.
Right, that's how
he was already doing his postdoc, and we met at the church in Oxford that we went to. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and
What
then,
did,
and then
what did you
how,
study? What did you study at Oxford?
I studied history. Hmm. So
and so when did you move to Kidlington? When?
we got married in 2002, so then we bought a house then when we got married.
Right.
Yeah, so we've lived here, yeah, long time now.
And Hannah, one of the first sort of times I remember sort of really getting to know you was through the holiday clubs. You did the children's holiday clubs. How come you came to do that, and how come you sort of did it in Kidlington?
Well, when we first moved to Kidlington, we continued to go to church in Oxford because that's where a lot of our contacts were. And I think over time, we, you know, with having our children and stuff, we built up more connections locally. And I remember one summer traveling down into Oxford for a holiday club. And I think it was with a friend. She took several children in a car, and then I took all the children who were under 5 on the bus, because then they wouldn't have to pay. And I remember thinking, why am I traveling all this way, taking children to a holiday club? We need one where we are. So yeah, we got in touch with various people in Kidlington, like Marilyn King, who was involved in the holiday clubs that used to run here, and different people from different churches, and because we were kind of keen to get everyone involved who wanted to. And yeah, it was something we really felt God wanted us to do, and it took a bit of courage, but then we did it for 7, I think we did 7 years.
Yeah, 7,
until
wow.
COVID.
Yeah. An amazing job you did as well. Great. It was really great. So is that how you started coming to the Baptist church through?
Well, I guess it sort of over a similar time. Yeah, we just, the more we got settled in Kidlington, the more we felt this is where God wanted us to be. You know, it was natural for us to want to go to church here. And I went along to Jill Downs's mum's group when Owen was a baby. And then I started helping with Little Fishes. And so I gradually got to know more and more people in the church. And then as a family, kind of, we gradually moved over. Yeah. And it's really great to be involved in a local church and just be part of a community here. Yeah.
We're so glad to have you. And what do you do? What's your job?
So I work in one of the local primary schools as a teaching assistant, supporting children. And yeah, I really love the job. I feel like the job was made for me, or I was made for the job. So, something like that anyway. It's just the perfect combination of time and teaching, and I can really use my skills and gifts. And the children I work with are amazing, and I just love being there. And it's a great school, great community of staff, and yeah, I love it.
Children seem to come up a lot in what you've talked about. I mean, you seem to have a great affinity with children. Is that a fair comment? Yes,
I think so. Yeah, I love working with children.
And obviously you're really busy because you've got 2 children of your own, but when you're not working, what do you like to do? What things help you to relax, and your passions?
I did have to think about this one, and I don't think I've got one kind of big passion that stands out. I mean, I said I do love my job, but I've thought of a few smaller things, I suppose. I mean, I love spending time with the family, so whether that's cooking with Alice or building Lego with Owen or family games or walks. I also like gardening, particularly this time of year. So when we when I was growing up, my dad loved primroses, and we always used to go on holiday to Pembrokeshire in Wales, where there were a lot of primroses in the spring. And when we got married, I got some primroses from my granny's garden in Wales, and they've literally taken over our garden. It's full of primroses, so I love it at this time of year. I like just spending time with people, so we quite often go to the park because Owen loves going to the park, and I love just chatting to people that I see there, just sharing life with people, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I also quite like watching interior design programs and period dramas while ironing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I quite often do in the evening. Yeah.
I'll
Just
drop my...
be careful, Hannah, but saying that you don't have a lot of hobbies, because Ruth will have you knitting. She's a real evangelist for knitting.
Well, actually, we went round the other day for coffee in the garden and came home with some knitting needles.
Yeah, I proved my point.
We haven't got very far.
Oh yeah, and you've also got Rosie, your dog, as well, haven't you? So that's sort of, now that gives you a chance to walk, I guess, more perhaps.
Yes, and meet a whole lot of new people as well who start talking to you. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And obviously lockdown's coming to an end now, but how have you found like the whole lockdown and everything going on? How have you?
I think it's been a bit mixed. I mean, I've been grateful that I've been able to carry on doing my job and going into school for most of it, because it's given me the chance to see other children and other adults, and have a good routine. Although sometimes that's been hard with the mix of homeschooling and work and everything else going on. I think we've had some good family times, but I've also really missed my family in Cardiff, because Wales was like, you know, closed its borders for a long time. Although we did see my mum last week, so that was amazing. And also I found it hard when Geraint's mum died back in June, because we hadn't seen her for several months, and it was very hard to, you know, we couldn't have a proper funeral. And I think my experience of family members who passed away before was always, you know, funeral services where all the family was around and we were there for each other. And it was, I mean, we did have a small graveside burial in North Wales with a few family members, but I did find it hard to go through that experience during a lockdown.
So tough.
Yeah. So a bit up and down, mixed, but I think probably that's been the same for everyone. So
yeah, pretty mixed. And did you have a think about if you could choose two people that you would have liked to have shared with? Did you have any thoughts on?
Yes. Well, the first one that came to mind, because I've always liked like Jane Austen, well, books and watching dramatizations. So that was the first one that came to mind. But then I decided against her because I didn't think we could keep up with all the manners, like, you know, the standing up and the sitting down. And I just thought the stress of that in my household would not help lockdown, really. So I went instead for one of my childhood heroes, which is also a book and a film that I've enjoyed, which is Anne of Green Gables. I loved reading the books and watching the films growing up, and I still do it sometimes just for a bit of relaxation. Yeah. So yeah, I thought she made lots of mistakes in life, and she had lots of imagination, and I think that's much more helpful to our family in lockdown. So that was the first one. And then the second one, well, it's actually two people, but as they're sisters, they're the same bubble, so I think it's okay. Mary and Martha, because I think one of the things I found hard in lockdown is balancing all the kind of priorities in life, the kind of practical things that need doing, work, all the children being at home, but also that need to kind of carve out time for myself. So I thought maybe if I had the two of them, they could help me kind of balance things out and get my priorities right. And I love that phrase about Mary, that she chose to sit at Jesus's feet, and that she'd chosen the best thing that wouldn't be taken away from her. And I think maybe during lockdown, I've had a bit of time to think, well, what are my priorities and what really matters? And so, yeah, I think those two as a combination would be really great.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fascinating, the range of people that have been chosen, from Ian Botham to Eric Cantona to Mary, Joseph,
Yeah.
Amanda Higgins saying the author of the Epistle to the Hebrews, so you find out who it is. And of course the person who said, I like to have Raymond Blanc, at least the food would be good.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've got my daughter to cook for me, so.
Oh, that's all right then. That's okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. Really good ideas.
Yeah, and did you think of a Bible verse? Your favourite Bible verse?
Well, I don't know if I really have a favourite Bible verse, because I find that in different situations, different verses stand out to me. But one that I have found helpful over the last year or so is Psalm 23. Maybe I like the imagery of shepherds and sheep coming from Wales. But I think, yeah, there's a few things that stand out from that. Just the still waters and the green pastures, and the kind of time that God gives us for restoration. And then the dark valley. I feel like I've been through some dark times over the last year, but the fact that God is always there, and his comfort and presence is sort of unfailing. And also I like the bit at the end where it talks about goodness and mercy following me all the days of my life. Somebody once said they were like sheepdogs, goodness and mercy. So Jesus was sort of leading, and then behind was always these sheepdogs keeping you on the right track. So I quite like that image. And yeah, just I think there's so much in that psalm, yeah, that's been a help to me. And then I also find that often songs speak to me. So one song that I've really benefited from this year is by Lou Fellingham. Jesus, you're the hope I cling to, tower that I run to, saviour ever near, radiant light within my darkness, faithful in my weakness, God who strengthens me. And then particularly the chorus, Christ in me, my hope and my glory, my certainty, my heart bows down, surrendered in worship to my God and King. And I think there's been a lot of uncertain times and dark times over the last year, but that sense that Christ in us is really a strong hope and a strong certainty that we can hold on to whatever's happening. So that song's really kind of spoke to me as well, as the Bible verse I mentioned. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. Incredible.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah. Remember, President Trump was asked, "What's your favorite Bible verse?" And he said, "All of them, all of them."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I bring
you? All right. Look who's appearing to ask
Hello,
a question.
Cromwell.
say hello? He hasn't actually met Rosie yet, has he? So we'll have to get them together.
Yes.
So is it time for Cromwell to ask his question?
Yeah, go on, Cromwell, go for it.
And I hope I know the answer. Hannah, cats or dogs?
Well, to be absolutely honest, I'm not an animal person at all.
Oh, he's disappeared.
You hear that, Cromwell?
I know, he's gone away. Like, oh, what's going on?
When I was a child, I loved cats, and we had a kitten, but unfortunately I was allergic to it, so it had to move to my uncle's, and I was devastated. And I've kind of not really been into pets, but the children started this Get a Dog campaign, which went on for 1.5 years, and finally I gave in. There were times in December when I was in the garden at 3 a.m, freezing cold, and I thought, why did we do this? However, we've got through the hardest patch, I think. Yes, and we've very much bonded to Rosie. She's definitely part of the family, and I like having a dog a lot more than I thought I would. So it's definitely dogs in the end.
Yay. But I'm glad. That's great. Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. That was really interesting, and it does keep this KBC preferring dogs to cats theme going. We'll have to, cat lovers, where are you? Come and talk to Ruth and me. And we promise that Cromwell won't chase the cat. Anyway, thank you again for listening to us, and glad to be here, and we will probably be back next week with another one for you.